What is going on, Internet? Let's talk about Dollarama, the value retailer and essential business that saves us more on thousands of everyday items. I remember loving going to Dollarama as a kid. When my parents would go shopping there, I knew I could ask them to buy me things that they would actually say yes every now and again. Dollarama really had the coolest toys too. Well, the coolest toys a dollar could afford. I remember getting a whoopee cushion, some slime, a slinky, and so many other cool gadgets that I would just love to play with all the time. And in this current economy, I find myself shopping there more and more. Their prices are pretty hard to beat, and these days, they even carry popular brands, so it's an easy one-stop shop for most needs. And I would bet that they can meet your needs too if they don't already, of course. On top of that, they dominate the dollar store market in Canada, edging out their biggest competitor, the US's Dollar Tree chain. So today, we're looking at the Rossi family dynasty and variety store titan, Dollarama. We'll be looking at the 4 main reasons I believe contributed to their journey to the top. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a second to thank all of you out there watching and supporting the channel. I can't tell you how appreciative I am for reaching 20 subscribers within the past few weeks. My goal for this month is hitting the 100 mark, and with your support, I'm sure I can get there. If you enjoy the content on this channel and would love to see more of it, I would be grateful if you could like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm, and make sure you are notified when the next video is released. And hey, if you want to check out my last video about TELUS, the link is right here in the top right corner and below in the description. Let's talk about Dollarama's origins a bit prior to discussing the main reasons for their rise. Before there was Dollarama, there was the S. Rossi store on Craig Street in Montreal, Quebec, founded by Salim Rossi. Salim was a Lebanese immigrant who was living his Canadian dream. This man would have 10 children, and they would all be helping with the business, which led to the expansion of their operations. His son Michael would actually start his own successful retail store in 1949, Rossi. If you've ever lived in Quebec or the Maritimes, I'm sure you've probably come across this chain of department stores. That said, his son George would eventually take over as president of the S. Rossi business in 1937. George would lead the company until 1973 and would change the business model to that of a 5 and dime variety store. George's son, Larry, would then take the helm of the company, which had 20 locations in 1973. By 1992, he would operate a network of 44 stores in Quebec, more than doubling the number of S. Rossi outlets. That same year, in 1992, Dollarama is born. Larry would convert one S. Rossi store in Matane, Quebec, into the first Dollarama. This brings us to the first reason for their success. The company saw an opportunity and capitalized on a changing retail environment. The idea was ingenious. Larry wanted to see if selling all their products for $1 or less would be sustainable. Fast forward to today, and there's around 1,500 Dollarama stores across the country. Safe to say, it was a brilliant concept. And after the success of their first store, Larry and his team would transform all the other S. Rossi stores and adapt them to the new brand and model, and continue to expand locations. That same year, they would also open their first store outside of their native province, and thus, New Brunswick would be the first province not named Quebec to have a Dollarama. This wasn't the only time they would adapt to their landscape. In 2019, they also launched their e-commerce site, where they sell their products by the caseload across Canada. Now, if we go back to 2004, the retailer would continue to expand drastically, now counting almost 350 stores within 6 Canadian provinces. This ties into their second reason for their rise, their focus on growth, mainly within Canada. Dollarama would also improve their distribution by adding 2 warehouses in Montreal. That same year, in 2004, private equity fund Bain Capital would buy 80% of the dollar store retailer for $850 million and would support their growth as they would continue to scale up. Over the next few years, they would continue to expand westward and would eventually have stores in each province. They would also increase their efficiencies by opening another warehouse and a distribution center close to their multiple warehouses in Montreal. By 2007, they would open their 500th store in the nation's capital city, Ottawa. In 2009, the company would go public during the financial crisis and start selling their shares on the TSX, Toronto Stock Exchange, showcasing confidence in the markets. This would allow them to raise money to expand their business and execute on growth. As prophesized, in 2012, they would open their 700th store in the Great White North. By this point, Bain Capital would complete their investment exit by selling their remaining shares of Dollarama. The value retailer would accomplish a phenomenal milestone by opening their 1,000th store in 2015. Today, the dollar store chain counts roughly 1,500 stores and has no plans of slowing down. They aim to open 2,000 Dollarama stores by 2031 and are currently on track of meeting this goal. After a very long and successful tenure as the leading head honcho of S. Rossi and Dollarama, Larry would pass on the torch over to his son Neil, who would take on the role of president and CEO in 2016. That same year, they would open another warehouse in Montreal to support their growth initiatives. But hold up, let's rewind just a little bit, because we're only talking about their presence in Canada. In 2013, the retailer would embark into a licensing and services deal with Dollar City, a similar value store chain that operates in El Salvador. Dollarama would share their expertise with the Salvadoran Dollar Store Company. They would help Dollar City with the vetting, selecting, and managing of suppliers that would provide the Salvadoran variety store with products. This was a smart move for Dollarama because they would also be able to conduct market research in the process, because they could test their business model in Latin America while also increasing their exposure in these areas. In 2019, the dollar store Big would continue to grow the company. They would acquire a majority stake of 50.1% of Dollar City, further expanding their exposure and growth strategies in South America. Dollar City would be a great investment because they would now be operating 200 stores within Colombia, Guatemala, and El Salvador. And they increased their Canadian distribution capacity by about 50% when they extended their distribution center in Montreal. With this disciplined focus on growth, Dollarama would see their stock price increase by around 2,500% since their IPO in 2009, or roughly an annual compounded growth rate of 29%. If that wasn't enough growth, their revenues also increased by around 256% since 2010. And did I mention they also offer a dividend to repay their loyal investors? Talk about a company that knows how to benefit their customers and investors. The third reason for their ascension to the top is that they've created a brand that customers trust. I mean, if they can add over 1,000 stores in less than 20 years, they must be doing something right that provides value to their clients. And value is what they're known for. When Larry started Dollarama, items were sold for $1, but their product line was limited at the start. The retailer would add additional price points on 3 separate occasions since their inception. Each of these times, customer sentiment remained positive because the Dollar Plus store would be able to offer a wider selection of items while also increasing the quality of their products. Customers would be thrilled because they can now find essential goods from known brands that big box retailers sold but at value prices if they shopped at Dollarama. The first time they would do this is in 2009. They would start testing different price points for some of their products. The prices of their goods would either cost $1, $1.25, $1.50, or $2. And this change would actually exceed their customers' expectations. Having proven that customers would be loyal to the brand if they continued to expand their product offerings at value prices, Dollarama would add 2 new price points of $2.50 and $3 in 2012. In doing so, they would continue to add value for customers and shareholders. With the positive reactions they would receive, they would add 2 more price points of $3 and $4 to some of their products from key categories in 2015. Once more, The price increases would not bother clients because they would continue to get value deals when compared to their competitors. This really showcases that customers trust the brand because their earnings continue to increase year over year. This brings us to the fourth and final reason for their rise to the top. Dollarama's business is protected from inflation. No matter the economy, whether in times of prosperity or recession, the retailer will always have clients if they continue to maintain trust with their clientele and stay the course of their business model. With such low prices, it's always a good time to shop in their value stores. Proof is in the pudding, as they say, and this company has not had any net losses since going public in 2009. In fact, they've shown net earnings growth of over 1,000% since 2009. Let's not forget that span includes 1.5 recessions, the 2009 financial crisis, and the current economic growth halt. We don't quite meet the definition of a recession as of right now, but we're seeing hyperinflation as consumers and many businesses have struggled, closed operations, and declared bankruptcy since the COVID pandemic. Not Dollarama though. They've continued to thrive. Though you should note that they did report lower earnings in the first quarter of 2020, but this was due to increasing staff wages and spending $50 million to protect staff during the pandemic. That said, they still reported a net profit of $532 million that year. While their competitors had to increase prices dramatically to stay afloat due to hyperinflation, Dollarama has been able to stick to their prices and saw booming customer demand. And they continue to showcase healthy, growing profits in the midst of the current economic climate. Dollarama's story started with a quote-unquote Canadian dream by Salim Rossi. He would create a family dynasty that would eventually provide all Canadians with access to great value for essential products, trinkets, and other everyday items. It was his grandson Larry who saw an opening in the changing retail market and capitalized on it. Through his leadership, the dollar store retailer would adopt a disciplined growth-focused strategy. In the process, they created a brand that customers could trust, a business that is even protected from inflation, consistently offering low prices to their customers. All of these factors led to their rise to the top. Dollarama's story should inspire all of us because we can all make something out of nothing if we put our minds to it. So, like this affordable retailer, let's all be proud Canadians serving one another from coast to coast. I'm interested in hearing your comments. Like I mentioned earlier, these are the main reasons I believe contributed to Dollarama's success. What do you think about them? Do you have any other reasons that explain their success? I would love to hear different thoughts on the topic. And hey, S. Rossi predates my time, but have you ever been to one of their stores? What was it like? And how does it compare to Dollarama? I'd also like to know which company you would like me to report on next. I'm all ears and eager to hear all about them in the comment section. Thank you for watching.